Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Social Theory. I am your host, Thomas E. Hanna, the founder of BlogPhoto.tv, and I am super excited for what we have in store for you today. But before I introduce you to our special guest, I do want to remind you that this is an interactive event, and so we would love to have you join in with your comments and questions, and we'll be drawing from those in the second half of our show. There's two ways that you can do that. If you're watching this live on Google+, simply leave a comment right here in the event page. If you are watching this on the website or anywhere else, simply tweet your questions or comments to hashtag #STShow, and we'll be bringing those into the show over the course of the broadcast. But now I want to introduce you to the man of the hour. This guy here has 4 shows that he happens to host all across the Google Hangouts on air, and he has developed a remarkable following here on the Plus and across other social media forums outside the social media sphere. So he doesn't just talk about the social media sort of tech things, that a lot of times we give a lot of advice that way and it just doesn't work in some areas because that's not their niche. This guy's broken out of that, and he has really built up his following largely in the food industry and has used social media to turbocharge that. And I want to introduce you to him. This is the chef, Dennis Littley. How are you doing, Dennis?
I am fine and happy to be here today, Thomas, and it's such a thrill to be on your show. I've been watching it, and I was wondering if I was going to get a chance to be on, so this is a special moment for me.
Well, I am super excited to have you on. I know that you and I have had the opportunity a few times now to connect in person, as well as being able to see the remarkable things that you've been doing. The fact that you actually travel now and are able to go as an ambassador to places all over Florida and represent restaurants, and they bring you in and they feed you and allow you to broadcast so you get the good food right there just because they want you to promote their stuff. That to me is like living the dream.
It's a terrible life, but somebody's got to do it. Now I've expanded into hotels, so anybody on the coast that wants me to come review their hotel, I'll be happy to do that too. Either coast.
Well, I love it, and I know this has been a journey for you. So tell us a little bit about how what you used to do, how that transitioned into social media, and how that led you to where you are now.
Well, I grew up loving food, and Graham Kerr was my original idol, the Galloping Gourmet, and I just marveled at how he could make people happy with food. So that was always in the back of my mind, and through life takes you twists and turns, I finally wound up in the kitchen cooking and learning my trade. I was an apprentice to master chefs, and they taught me everything I needed to know. Went to school, but it wasn't for cooking. It was for management and different things. So, the last part of my career, after spending it in restaurants, cooking, sautéing and doing all kinds of interesting and fun things and feeding all kinds of great people, my fiance, who is a teacher, would always, there'd be 4 foot of snow on the ground. She wouldn't have to go in, and I'd be digging myself out so I could go into work and feed everybody. It was like, unless there was a state of emergency, I was going to work, and she would nag me about that or tease me about that. And then one day, a friend of mine went to a school and asked me, he said, "We have an opening. Would you like to come over to a school?" And I knew nothing about school feeding. So I went over, but I looked at their school calendar, and I saw I'd be working 168 days a year, and I went, I can do that. That I can do that.
You're upgrading, yeah, slowly
Yeah.
moving.
So, at that point, I was doing executive dining. So, it wasn't a bad life. But it wasn't that life. I was working days, and I had most weekends off, but it still wasn't quite that. So I went to that, and I sat in the office being the manager because I wasn't supposed to cook anymore because I'd had surgery on both hands, and they didn't work the way they should, and the food was so bad. I just couldn't deal with it and went in and started cooking, and then the rest, as we like to say, is just the stuff legends are made of. I mean, I changed the whole way they ate at the school. They went to eating chicken marsala and sushi and stir fries and anything that I would feed adults in this high school atmosphere, and they were all girls and they loved to eat, so you can imagine the response I got. So that led me to the journey of where I came, because it was, people just loved it, and we do events. I never had help, so I decided to start a culinary class at the school, after school. So I started teaching that, and the kids would come in, and we do this. They didn't have the recipes, so I said, I didn't get them printed out. So I went to the IT person and says, what's this blogging thing I hear about? So he says, oh, it's real simple. We'll set you up. So I started the blog, and I would put the recipes there. I'd post, because the parents were asking too. Chef Dennis is like amazing. We want his recipes, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, sure. Thank you. But so I started the blog, and it was ugly as sin. It was terribly written. But it was the beginning, and I applied to some places to be part of these blogger groups, and they came back and said, no, it's ugly as sin. So, I start to hyperventilate, not wanting, being very competitive, not wanting anything to be that way. So I started working on it, found a group, and improved it, and woke up one morning, and I always tell the same story. I had readers in Singapore and New Zealand, and up to that point it had been my brother and his wife, and I didn't know what was going on. So that fueled the interest, and that fueled the drive. So all of a sudden now I see there's a whole other world out there, and that's when I discovered social media. That's when I discovered Twitter. I discovered Facebook, and just started getting involved in those. But the sad part of that was, as I was beginning a journey about halfway through the big food blog bonanza, and people that I met and liked me and we were friends with had 20, 50, 100 times the followers I did on Twitter and on Facebook. And as a competitive guy, as a guy especially, it's hard to see that, and hard not to try and want to compete on some kind of level with that. So, I would struggle with it, and I never really found true connection on either of those platforms. So the summer that Google Plus came out, I went, I'm trying everything at that point. I was signing up. If something's going to work, I signed up for it, and I sat there and found an immediate connection with it. I found it was my place. I was home, and that's exactly how I refer to it. And I just started using that as a social media, and that's really when things started to take off for me. When I found something I truly enjoyed using, I found that I could use the other social medias as well. I didn't use them as much as I used Google+. I kind of pretty much lived there. But it drove me to share other things on Twitter, to share other things on Facebook, and my stats slowly rose on both those. They're still nowhere near what my friends are that were on there from the beginning, but I far surpassed them on Google Plus. So it's okay.
Yeah, well, that's crazy. Now, there's a couple of things that you said in here which I really liked. The first was when you talked about your beginnings as a blogger, and you say, I started off, it was ugly as sin. I was sending it off to people, and they were sending it back and said, no, we're not touching this thing with a 12-foot pole. Because we've had a couple of people on the show, and we always start off and we ask, well, tell us how you came to be where you are, and it's a recurring theme that people don't start off and immediately gain this stuff. There is this learning curve, and it starts off and we're fumbling and we're stumbling and we're messing up and we're making mistakes, and we kill a blog off and we kill a blog off and we kill a business off, and then finally we find our place, and things begin to click and things begin to move together. But it takes a process to get there, and I love the fact that that you just come right out and say that it started off and it really wasn't where it needed to be until it came over. But you connected with Google Plus, and Google Plus, you say, is sort of fed now some of these other places that you were at that you were not gaining traction with initially.
Right.
Why do you think Google Plus made such a big difference?
Well, because I made real connections on Google Plus. I met people, whether it was virtually or whether it was just chatting with them. Before Hangouts really even became the tool that they are, just talking to them through chat or through emails. I made these connections, and I continue to make the connections. So they then, oh, you're on Twitter. Oh, I'm on Twitter. Let's follow each other. Or I'm on Facebook. Or I'm on my big joy right now is Instagram. I love Instagram. I'm having a really good time with that.
Yeah.
So.
You enjoyed taking the photos of your food, I know.
Yeah, and just and again, my out and abouts. Like we were at Disney the other day, so I had 3 Disney pictures in there. And I shared a picture of bacon roses. Oh, that was so cool. And I am getting married, but Lisa said no way to forget about the bacon roses as a bouquet. So. And somebody on Facebook said, well, she could use that as the throwaway to throw. And I said, well, that'd be the first time you'd see the groom in the line to catch the bouquet then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the connections I made on Google is what really drove the other ones, because then I connected with them there. So then when you feel a connection with someone, you're more likely to talk with them on other formats, or to share on other formats, or to become a little more, responsive to them, and just a stream running,
Right. Well, and I mean, I agree. I've said this so many times that relationships transcend platforms. So, in fact, I think I shared a thing today where I mentioned it again. Google Plus is not my primary driver of traffic to my blog anymore. For a long time it was. Twitter now has actually passed Google Plus as the main traffic source to my blog. But if you dig beneath the surface on that, you find that the relationships that were built here are the ones that are driving that momentum that I'm seeing over on Twitter. So it still pulls back to here. Mark Schaefer published something over on the Plus Your Business today where he talked about Google Plus as being like the secret major economic investment on the web, because this place facilitates relationships so well, which then transcend everything else. So I think that's pretty dead on.
And that's part of the problem why the food bloggers struggled with it so much, because they weren't looking to develop, the relationships outside of their community. And you need to develop these kind of relationships with everybody, not just your friends, not just your niche. And that's been my secret to Google Plus, is that I always tell people, when you come on, you already know food bloggers. Don't bother with them. They're your friends. Keep them, share their stuff, but go. You got other interests. Do you like to sew? Do you like to fly? Do you like to paint? Those are your other interests. Go there. Find new people there. Talk to those people. Talk to influential people. Find people that know what they're doing in other areas, and you'll really start to grow, and you'll start to have fun. That's when you have fun, because if you're hitting that same nail every day, boom, 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 and you never try something else, it gets boring after a while. But if I can talk to somebody about aerospace metals, like Michael Bennett, and he's talking to me about the different things that they make, and I'm like, oh, geez, this is really cool. Or if I talk to somebody about photography, or just like Ronnie Benser about all the different elements of Hangouts, and I would have never met him if all I was doing was food. Or David Amerland. I'd have never met these people if I left my blinders on and looked at one thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and I mean, let's talk about your shows for just a moment, because I think that really brings a lot of those together. Because you have 4 shows, right? Now, 3 of them tend to deal with cooking. You have a cooking show. You have the food and booze show. I'm missing.
On the Road with Chef Dennis.
There you go. On the Road. Thank you. I knew it was in there. It just went on the road on its own. And then you have Good Day Google Plus. And now Good Day Google Plus is not actually a cooking show at all. In fact, that show itself brings in the diversity of all of these different things you were talking about. You've had shows where you were talking about Ello. You've had shows where you've been talking about music. You had shows where you've been talking about all sorts of different stuff. Now, have you found that Good Day Google Plus has become a source that has fed also your growth in these other shows as well?
Yeah, because people have seen me on Good Day Google Plus, so they'll take the time to watch me somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not everything transcends, not everything will work. Like when I was doing some more specific kind of shows, people love their shows about tech and about social media and digging into it, and I don't want to do. I mean, I'll do those shows if I'm doing them for my blogging group or if I'm doing them for information. Like I'll have a specific show about something that I want to learn about, and I'm really interested in because I think other people will. But if I just want to spend some time on the afternoon, and virtually, like one of the things, you can't always be with your friends. You can't get out and see everybody that you've met all over the world. Well, a great way to bring them together is to bring some people together for an hour in a hangout. And I always tell people, bring a beverage, enjoy yourself, and talk. And let's talk just like we would if we were out for dinner, at night. Let's have a conversation.
And those conversations have been really interesting, particularly when you get people in that are really knowledgeable in their different areas, and you wind up having these cross discussions that are really a lot of fun to watch. Eileen brought up a good point earlier. I mentioned the link between Google Plus and Twitter and how the relationships there have been driving it. She pointed out that, because she knows I'm on Triber, I'm actually in Eileen Smith's tribe on Triber. It's just Twitter is sending me so much traffic because Triber is the bridge between Twitter and Google Plus, and I think there's some truth to that. Although I'll also point out that I've seen since building the relationships on Google Plus, I've seen major upticks in Facebook traffic and particularly LinkedIn traffic as well. So even without Triber, it's been transcending into some of those other ones there as well.
Yeah, I like Triber. All right, let me rephrase that. I use Triber, and it has been very good to me in terms of growth on Twitter. But if you look at Twitter, I mean, and again, I never really embraced Twitter. That 140 characters, I'm always running out of letters.
Yeah.
And I can't buy Vanna, can I buy a Val? It ain't happening. So, but it seems to me like the stream has changed drastically. When I first got on before Triber, there was more conversation going on.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't seem that way. Now it seems just like a constant stream of promotion.
Well, and I think, I do think there's some truth to that. I've had some great conversations on Twitter, but they typically are in response to something that's been shared. So it's not just discussion. It's somebody that shares or promotes something, and then you wind up talking about that thing.
Right. But it's not like before. It was a lot of conversations going on. When I first joined, there was tons of conversations just going on. You'd go on there to say good morning, and you talk, and with people, and say hi to people. But now it just seems like just a constant stream of promotion, which brands love it. So it's got to be worth something, and you're getting visibility, and that's what they want you to have, is that visibility. But I think it's changed. I think Triber is one of the reasons, because of all the shares that they do. They've made it very easy to share. And like I said, I use it, and it's been very good to me. So I'm not going to talk bad about it, but I just think it has changed the face of Twitter.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Twitter has become also seen as sort of the place to gather information. So it's become sort of the cutting edge. If a news story breaks, Twitter is where you're getting the most recent data, and so people have begun looking at it that way. Plus, I think your points on the 140 characters is a good point. Particularly people like me, I'm a grammar Nazi. I like good grammar. You cannot have good grammar on Twitter. You just can't. You try to have something with good grammar, and you get 2 or 3 words in, and you're like, I have to finish. I now have the intro to my sentence, and I have to finish it in the next 7 tweets.
I know. Even with messages, like you're trying to write a message to someone, and all of a sudden you're out of room. So I'll be sending things. Just, God, can't we just email, or better yet, do you do a Google Hangout? Can we just talk and get it over with really quick? But still, again, Twitter is valuable. Facebook, reaches a completely different person, I believe, than Google Plus does. So everything has their value, everything has their place, and wherever you're the most comfortable is where you should be and be gaining. But everybody, I think, needs to look, and it's the Facebook mentality has made us not as social, I think, as we could be. Mm-hmm. especially from coming from a food blogger's perspective,
Right.
because we want followers. We want people to, say how great our recipes are and love them and share them and make them, which is why we do what we do.
Right.
But in the interim, we tend to lose some of the personal touch, some of that just of getting to talk to other people and being a person with another person.
Well, talking about this for just a moment, because you say the Facebook mentality. What do you mean by the Facebook mentality?
Share it out, get a bunch of likes, and share another thing out, get a bunch of likes, share another thing out, get a bunch of likes, thank them. It was never about sharing as much of other people's work as it is just a constant stream of your own daily work, and then that's what I use it for. Now I use it. I use Facebook now more than ever, and someone says, "Well, you're on Facebook a lot now." I says, "Yeah, that's because of Instagram. Because I hit the Facebook button whenever I do an Instagram post, and it sends it there for me. It's not that I'm on there more; it's just that you see more things."
Indeed.
So I've started to use it to document just my daily activities, which I wouldn't use Google Plus for. I wouldn't use my blog for. So Instagram is kind of like a glimpse at what I'm doing, and a lot of it then goes to Facebook, so you get a bigger glimpse of what I'm doing.
Right. So, and you see that in some places on Google Plus as well. In fact, it is interesting to me when you see major, like old school major social media leaders, like social media leaders that have been leaders for like 15 years or more, right? And Google Plus in many ways has changed the culture. Within this landscape, there's a different culture of social sharing than we see in a lot of other places. It's really focused on connection. It's really focused on being able to draw people in, and it's really focused on collaboration. And so you see those that do that Facebook thing, like you were talking about, where you go to their stream, and all they have on it are all of their individual blog things that they've published or are promoting, and then you look at the interaction on them compared to their follower counts, because these are major people, they've got major followings, but there's like no comments, there's very few reshares, there's a few pluses, and then people wonder why, I've got a bunch of followers, but I have no engagement, and they wonder why they can't get any traction on Google Plus. And I think it comes down in many ways to what you were just talking about.
And they try to use Google Plus like that. And, like someone will say, "Oh, I remember someone in one of our communities," and that's a really good part of Facebook, or all the closed communities that they have, where you can forums where you can go and talk and ask questions. There really are some really good ones on there, and that's like the biggest plus for me about Facebook, the communities there. But you see people, like someone said, "Oh, I posted something on Google Plus and asked a question, and it was crickets." And they posted this in the community. I'm like, I went back to their page and says, "Well, yeah, you post every 6 days. You never post anybody else's stuff. You ask a question of people, no one answers you, and you wonder why." Really?
Yeah, and that's it. If you're collaborating with other people, you suddenly create this network that draws things in. In fact, and Eileen actually followed up on the previous comment earlier in response to what we were saying. She says that you're absolutely right about Twitter being promotional, and she thinks that's why you need the bridge that Triber provides nowadays to bring us over to Google Plus, because the two networks work rather well together. And I've seen some of that. I think I've seen some of that to be true. Certainly, I think my strongest Triber connections are also Google Plus connections.
Oh yeah, they are, and that's the good thing. And that's one of the reasons I use Triber too, is because they're my friends. I've made this connection with these people now, so I'm willing to, and I want to share their things. So.
Yeah, no, and I think that's dead on. So it sounds like really across the board for you, where the old school sort of mentality for social sharing has been all promote, being the food industry. For you, what has turned the tables has been the heavy focus on building relationships and finding the right avenues that allow those relationships to be built in an ongoing manner.
Yeah. I like to think of it as, I always preach about using Google, and I always remind people that good content is good content, whether it's your content or someone else's.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a conduit to share that good content, and people then connect with you because they know you've made some really nice comments about the content, or you've shared, or they know they can depend on you to share good content with them. So people are always reluctant. It's that mentality where you're afraid to share your secrets, and food bloggers were really big on this, to share whatever they were doing because someone might get the leg up on you. And I think it was David Amerland that stated once, like, your competitor can be your best friend if you let them, because you both have a lot in common, you both have common ground, and you're really not going to steal each other's businesses. You're just not. You're going to build each other is what you're going to do. So it's that philosophy of building each other that I think has really caught Google Plus on fire, because we share everybody else's stuff. The people that are the most successful are the ones that don't care who the content came from. They're going to share it because it's good.
Yeah. And the great thing about being on a place that offers long-form content, and this isn't just Google Plus, Facebook, you can do some of it to a certain extent. You do this on Facebook. You can also do it on LinkedIn. When you share things and you have the ability to leave, more than 140 characters in the description when you share it, is that it provides an opportunity for you to add value to what is being shared there. Yep. So that you not only can you share great content from others, but in the process of adding value to it and commenting on it in ways that demonstrate your expertise, the content that you're sharing brings eyeballs to what they're doing and simultaneously promotes you as an authority in your field.
Right. And it's a win-win. And it's always got to be a win-win. When you share something, it's got to be a win-win for it to work. Because if you're sharing someone else's work and it's subpar, and even if you write this great intro to it, it's not going to get all those eyes on it. It's not going to get all those mentions and that notice because it's subpar. And if you take someone's really brilliant work and you do a crappy job of sharing it, it still may gain a lot of momentum, but it's not going to be the best for you. But you want to find that ground where you're sharing someone's work and it's helping both of you. It's working for both of you, and that's when you get really good positive results. And it's like being a good person too. You stop and look at it. That's how you have to think about it. You're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Well, and that's really, that's the heart of relationship building in any setting, is that you treat people the way you'd like them to treat you, right? And you wind up finding that, hey, we connect because you're not a jerk.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So sometimes I think we lose when we transition into a social media setting. We sometimes lose some of the basic things that feed relationships in every other setting in the world because of the fact that we can have a conversation with somebody and never have to look them in the eye.
Yeah. Yeah. Social media is good for the, like, a John Wayne kind of syndrome. I mean, you can get pretty big in the saddle if you don't think you actually have to see someone or you're never going to meet them in person. You can say some things, and I've had that happen on occasion. People will make comments that if they were really face to face, they wouldn't do it. So.
And we're going to come back to talking about some of that face-to-face stuff as well, because I know that you do a lot with not only making connections over a social platform, but also looking for opportunities to make those connections in real life as well. But we're going to have to come back to that because we are now approaching the halfway point in our show, according to the social theory Big Green Clock. And, Dennis Littley, do you know what that means?
I know what that means.
That means it is time for this or that.
Ooh.
Now, I have to tell you, this is hilarious because one of the things I say before we start the show is, just so you know, there will be a clip in the middle, and if you talk, it will cut back over to you. And so Dennis, when you caught yourself starting to make it, you caught yourself just a fraction late. So it cut back over to you, and like half the time you're like this.
I know.
And that's obviously it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Gotta love it, gotta love it. And you know, if I'm not afraid to make faces on live internet, that's being recorded, you know. But at this age, I don't care, you know.
No, that was great. Well, this is the part of our show where we get to know our social media leaders just a little bit better by playing a game of this or that. And we play this game with my trusty deck of Would You Rather cards. And in a moment, I will draw a random card, Chef Dennis Littley, and on that card will be 4 questions. These questions will span four categories. The first is fear or discomfort, followed by appearance or embarrassment, then ethics or intellect, and then a random card. These questions will present you with 2 possible scenarios. You have to choose which scenario you would rather by selecting this or that, and then tell us why. Are you ready to play the game?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Question number 1. Dennis Littley, would you rather be stuck in a small plane with bad turbulence for 2 hours or be a passenger in a car racing in the Daytona 500?
I would rather be a passenger in a car racing in the Daytona 500.
All right, and you have to tell us why.
Because although you do see accidents from time to time, you rarely do. And on a small plane with a lot of turbulence, I might embarrass myself a lot. And I remember the first time I was in a small plane and we hit an air pocket, and you really drop in those. And I asked the pilot where the parachute was, and he goes, "Oh, hell, you won't have time to use that." So
he says, that's what he says, you won't have time to use that?
Yeah.
You know.
So I'll take the Daytona because I can always close my eyes.
Yeah, that's a good pilot, brother. You can close your eyes on a plane as well. All right. All right, question number 2. Oh, and this is so perfect for you, and we can tell why this is perfect for you in just a moment. But would you rather be a man with a voice like Minnie Mouse or a woman with an especially low voice like Bowser from Sha-Na-Na or Barry White?
Oh, no. I think I'm going to have to go with the woman with the low voice.
A woman with, and you got to tell us why.
Well, because, you know, women are beautiful, and if they don't speak, sometimes as a man, you're happier. So, you know, I could just keep that low voice to a minimum and maybe whisper, you know, do a little Kiefer Sutherland, and
Yeah.
just whisper my responses, even if it was low.
There you go. You could. That's right. You could. You have to think of it not as a low voice, but as like a, like a sensual voice. If you whisper, "So it's good to see you, young man."
Yeah.
I can't even do it and make it sound good. That just sounds.
I don't know. I think you'd have to find a guy that was a little kinky, though, if you're going to talk like Barry White, because he might really enjoy that.
And that will be, the topic of our next show.
Okay.
Question number 3. Would you rather go to a dinner that's much more snobbish, formal, and fancy than you're used to, or one that's much rougher, cruder, and earthier than you're used to?
Well, I'm used to some pretty rough, crude, earthy dinners, so if it was worse than that, I think there'd be a bottle of moonshine involved. I think I'd rather go upscale if I'm going to do something different and go to one that is more elegant than I'm used to.
Yeah, and we're gonna just to translate elegant. What we mean is snobbish, because that's what we.
Well, snobbish. I can have fun with snobs. But that's when you really start to bring out the party hats and you have a good time, because you can pretend to be as snobbish as they are, or you can try and show them how arrogant they really are. But hopefully, those kind of people would be serving some really good food. So.
Yeah, or you can talk to them in a really low Barry White voice.
There you go, baby.
All right, question number 4. Would you rather be completely alone with nobody in the vicinity for 1 year, or never be alone for even 1 minute for 1 year?
That's no internet either, right? Completely alone.
Yeah, we're gonna go with that. We're gonna say you're either completely cut off from humanity, or you can't cut humanity off of you.
I'm going to go with that. You can't cut humanity off with you, uh, because I could not be completely alone. I could be by myself for a year, but I would have to have some form of humanity around. Like if you put me on an island with just monkeys, I'd go crazy.
You would join them. You'd be like
Yeah.
Tarzan. We'd
Yeah.
see Chef Tarzan.
You would be so lucky to see Tarzan. You probably see more like Cheetah.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been This or That, and I think we all know Dennis Littley just a little bit better. All right, we've got some great comments that have been coming up over the course of the show. I do want to dive over into some of these. We've had kind of an ongoing conversation about Instagram, so I think we're going to target Instagram here in just a moment. But I did notice this right here, Jacob Odur. I may be killing that, Jacob. I apologize. But he really agrees with the point that you made. He said that when you share someone else's content because you know it's good stuff, and sharing helps build each other up, and not being scared your competitor will steal your recipe. That's really good piece of advice. You know, I always find it interesting that in blogging and really any sort of writing industry, that there is this fear that if you share other people's content, you're sending traffic away from you. Because if you look at really any sort of publication, what you're going to see right there in the beginning are other writers that have an intro or a prelude or their comments on why that's a good book, and they promote each other's stuff because people don't read just one thing.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot more out there, and you gain more friends by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And you never know. Not that you're doing it for that reason, but you never know which one of those friends is going to lead you in a direction that you would have never found, or an opportunity you would have never found. But because you've made those kind of connections by doing that, and I'll share random people stuff, and I don't always expect any kind of response from them. If they do and then they want to connect, that's fine. If they don't, it doesn't mean I won't share their stuff again if they put something up really good.
Mm-hmm. Well, and honestly, as bloggers, part of what we want, even aside from the elements that expand our reach or that we can monetize or anything else, part of what we want are the relationships that blogging builds, the conversations that take place in the comments, the way that people are engaging with our material. And if we wind up building connections with a bunch of people that don't necessarily have an audience they can push their stuff to, so it's not like making this is the golden connection that's going to make everything explode, but the fact that we're connecting with people that are interested in our stuff is that's kind of the goal.
Oh yeah. You want to find people that are interested in what you do, and then in the process, you find a lot of things that interest you. So that's why I'm always talking about that win-win. It's got to be good for everybody, and you're building yourself up as you're building someone else up at the same time.
Yeah. So all right. So how do you? What are some of the things that you do that help you go about building some of these relationships with other people?
Well, I ask them what they do, and I'm interested in what they do, and I'll just hang out pretty much with anybody that asks, as long as they're not a stalker or something. But we do get some of those. But it's always those meetings. When someone talks to you, says, well, hey, you want to hang out, and talk, and then learn about what they do. And most times that's when I'll invite them to be on my show because I want to learn more about them, and I use that as a way for me to learn more about them. The same as other people are going to learn about them. Like I had somebody on and they said, "Oh, do you want to know what I do?" And I said, "No, I said, we'll talk about it on the show. And she started laughing, and I said, no, I know what you do, but I mean, I thought there was something else. But then she told me, she says, oh, I knew that already, But I want to be as surprised and learn about you. I don't do a ton of research on my guests. I do vet them a little bit, make sure that they understand the internet connection and all that. But it's a good way for me to enjoy and to get good organic conversation. I keep saying that word over and over again, organic. It's got to be real. It can't be planned. It can't be you can't be thinking about it. People will say, let me send you the question, and I go, please don't. I just want to answer off the top of my head. Sometimes I'll embarrass myself, but most times I won't. But and then it's funny. But I like the answers. I like the responses to be genuine. And just like if, again, we're sitting around a coffee table, we're talking, and you ask something, and I tell you. That's how, and that's what makes things more real. And that's how I think I build these connections where people, enjoy talking with me or enjoy what I do, is because they know it's real.
So you make connections with people sort of out here, and then you invite them back to get to know them better. In many ways, sort of like if I meet somebody at the store and we kind of connect, and I may invite them over for dinner sometime or coffee or something like that. You kind of make your show your living room, and you invite people into your house in a sense.
Yeah, I always tell people it's kind of like Ellen meets The View. And we just kind of sit around and talk, and if I can throw some entertainment in there, we do that too. But yeah, it's just, let's come back and sit down and crack open a cold one, or have a cup of coffee or an espresso, and just and see what's up. What's going on in your life today, or what are you doing? Is there anything you're really excited about? And that's the time to share it. And hopefully the other guests, sometimes the guests are so focused on what they're going to talk about that and if it's their first time on the show too, and it's difficult. If you're not really used to doing one of these, it's difficult to get yourself in the mode to stop thinking about just what you're going to talk about. And that's just, I think, normal for people. But you want to stop that and drop it, and because you know that stuff already. Just put it on the back burner. Now let's listen to what you're saying, and what do you like to do? You want to drive a Daytona car, wow, are you really that brave? Have you ever been in one before? Did they strap you in? Can you scream? What if you got to go to the bathroom? That would be my question. What if I got to pee? Are they going to make a pit stop?
Yeah, that's... well, okay, so you connect with them and then you bring them back. How do you do that in some platforms where that sort of conversation is not as natural as what we find on Google+. So, for example, there's two in particular I'm thinking of. Pinterest. Pinterest has comments that you can do on it, but it's not really used that way. So part of my question would be, in a place like that, how do you use something like that to build connections? But also, you mentioned that you're real active on Instagram, and I know, if I remember correctly, Instagram only allows links in your bio, and doesn't allow you to link to things in any descriptions that you have. How do you utilize a platform like that to make connections with people that you can build into something more?
Well, I've met some people that I would not have met, and I haven't met them in real time yet, but I have followed some people that I would not have met that aren't on Google Plus or aren't on Facebook, that are simply just on Instagram, and I've gotten to see some things they do and a glimpse at their life. I've also made a deeper connection with people that I do know already by following them on Instagram and commenting or liking their pictures. So for me, it's just kind of more of a fun experiment, and I'm using it for growth, because if people really like what you're doing, like when I don't post as much of my food. I go in spurts. Like I might post nothing but food for a while, and then I'll post pictures. It all depends on what's going on in my life, what I'm doing, and what I think other people might think is interesting or appetizing. So I mean, if they think it's interesting enough, then they'll click on my blog link. It's like subliminal advertising.
Like embed it in the metadata of the image. Click on my
I
link.
wish. Yeah, that would be pretty cool if we could do that. I'm sure they'd shut that down right away. Uh, maybe those little 15-second video bursts.
Yeah, yeah. There you go.
Love
You
Chef
give me a
Dennis.
little
You love Chef Dennis.
GIF that there's a like hidden frame, right?
Yeah, but no, just if you find my stuff, I've clicked through to people's blogs because I wanted to see more.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's how I approach things, and I want to see, and then I want to see. The first thing I do is, are you on Google Plus? No.
Yeah.
Oh, sad. Okay, like I shared I shared this girl's pictures of a bacon rose bouquet. So first thing I did was look for her on Google Plus. I couldn't find her. Then I did find her, but she was hiding herself without putting any information in her bio. But it's like then I want to connect with you elsewhere. I want to hook up with you elsewhere, and I want to get to know you a little better. Let's make this relationship. So in some instances, it ain't never going to happen. I'm just going to enjoy your pretty pictures and have a good time leaving comments or what you leave from me or getting some kind of a little bit of a thing going on, without really having the social interaction that you would somewhere else. Because it's difficult, and now I'm trying to pick up. Like I'm loving. I got people from other countries follow me, and that's always been like a lot of fun for me too. When you get people from Italy or from Russia or from Japan, and you go to their page and you can't read it, and I go, oh, that's beautiful though. I got to say something,
Yeah. No, that's cool. So when you have a platform that doesn't allow any the real depth of conversations, you look to make a preliminary conversation there, but then draw it back to where you can take that in depth.
Yeah, take it to another level then. Same thing with Twitter. Like I'll see people on there, and like I found some new musicians, and I followed them, and they thanked me for following them. I said, hey guys, do you ever perform on a Google Hangout? And I found some people like this young lady I have coming on this Friday. I just randomly found her, and she connected, and we connected on Google, and she is just amazing. She is amazing. I can't wait to share her on Friday.
Yeah, very cool. And I know that part of this process that you've done has allowed you to make connections with an incredible diversity of people. In fact, you've got a show, if I remember correctly, coming up very soon on Good Day Google Plus, where you have a singer on here. Is that right?
Yep, that's this Friday. That is Stephanie Forian, and it's funny, when I first started Messenger back and forth, I thought she was German. She lives in Berlin, and she was doing a concert at a Mongolian yurt in Berlin, and I heard her sing, and I went, oh wow. And then we hung out and talked, and she's from Boston, because I wrote, oh, I can talk anytime except Sunday, that's the Super Bowl, and I wrote in parentheses, American football. And she wrote back, I know what American football is, I'm from Boston, I'm rooting for New England. So, you don't know. So then we had a conversation, and she's excited about doing the show, and she went to a recording studio. We're going to be broadcasting from there, and the guy's excited about doing it. And, so you make these connections. I would have never met her, and now I know her studio guy. I'd have never met him. And there's so many stories just like that I could tell you about all these people that I'd have never met Craig Fifield. Oh, my God. Craig's Army, and did you see that little the shield thing I had from him?
No, I did not.
Yeah, he's got a format that puts your picture on a shield, the Agents of Shield.
Oh, no, I did see it. Yeah, the name badge.
Yeah, that was so cool. So I mean, there's people like him. I can just go down the list. I lived miles from Christine DeGraff. I'd have never met Christine.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the same neighborhood. I've met people from Philadelphia here that I didn't even know were around. I'm going, why didn't I know you when I lived in the area?
Right. Wow, that's cool. Peter brings up a point here that I think raises a good question. I think there's a nuance to this, but we'll try to ferret that out. But he agrees that it's good to share other stuff. This goes back to earlier in our conversation. We were talking about sharing. He says that to him the only exception can happen on platforms like Facebook, where some people keep sharing your good stuff, but never once acknowledging where or who they got it from. In my book, that's bad manners. but hey, life goes on. He says, now, I'm curious because I know that in some ways, I don't think he's talking about sharing like blog posts or something. I think he's talking about like when you publish an image on social media and it's like reshared, and but they don't like hat tip the source or
Right.
anything like that. So how do you worry about anything like that, or uh,
You,
do you bother to deal with any of that, or how do you address some of those type of things?
if you find something blatant, you can just report it to Facebook and they'll have it removed. But to worry about it, I mean, there are groups that do nothing but worry about it, where you post all these people, and Facebook is notorious for being a grounds for stealing uh, blog posts, images.
Mhm.
People rebrand them with their own logo on them. I mean, brazen. But just taking a recipe from my blog without even my permission, reposting it on theirs. And these are people that will garner, 100, 200,000 followers because they steal posts from someone without even asking them and share them as their own. It's insane. So that's one of the things about Google Plus that I always like, because once you put that on Google Plus, it's like posting it legally because it timestamps it if you were the first one to write it. So if you do have an incident, granted, it's not patented or anything like that, or copyrighted, but they know you put it up on Tuesday at 12:45 a.m. and Joe Smo put it up Tuesday at 12:55 after he stole it from you. They know who it belongs to. Facebook, they don't care. They,
Yeah.
they don't
And
they don't give a.
Google takes that stuff seriously. Like they
Yeah.
don't play.
You can report it to Facebook and they will move on it, but for the most part, all it is giving them momentum, and all they see is momentum, and you can see that in how they operate. Like with all the money that guy's got, when Google Plus came out, I'd have given everything away for free just to piss him off, you know. But he starts, backpedaling and charging you to promote your stuff and promote your stuff. Like, I'll post something and 198 people will see it out of the 4,000 people that follow me. I'm like, really? That's it. Of course, if I pay, I can get more of them to see it.
Yeah. That's my frustration with Facebook as well, and I share that. I know we're starting to close down. To close down on time, I did want to share some comments that people had. They were very impressed with you. Earlier on this show, Ron shares this. He apparently is a rather good fan of you. He says many people don't know how knowledgeable Chef Dennis Littley is because he's so humble and modest. But you, he says, are a wealth of information. I think I'd agree with that. I know at one point you even just opened up. I know you don't do it anymore, but at one point you just opened up office hours for people to come in and just pick your brain and tap into that wealth of information. Eileen Smith agrees with what you were talking about earlier in terms of the organic conversation being so great. That's why she likes the this or that segment, is because it's that unfiltered organic type of discussion. And quite honestly, that is I enjoy all of your shows. But I think my two favorites are the Food and Booze show and Good Day Google Plus, and neither one of them are scripted. Both of them are just, you sit down. One of them you sit down, you enjoy the drinks and stuff, and just talk about them, and the other one is just a variety of different topics.
Yeah, and that's my favorite. If I had to pick one, Good Day Google Plus, because it's my time to network and meet friends and relax. And quite honestly, it's easy because I get to sit here in the chair, turn my computer on. I don't have to move anything for the Food and Booze. I'm going out and about with cameras, and on the road I'm going out and about. And on my cooking show, I have to set up two cameras, set up two laptops, and do the prep, and it's just not that I don't like doing it, but this is like, it's just time for me to relax and enjoy the time too. I don't have to, it's not as much pressure to perform for me on this. But it's great. I love it.
Yeah, and it is a very much more relaxed show, which even impacts, I've noticed, the audience and the way that the audience on that show interacts with you in a much more social sort of banter.
Yeah. People always say it's a good place to get your feet wet if you've never been on a show, because I can kind of talk you through it and keep you relaxed.
Yeah, well, I'd agree with that. That was one of the first shows that I was ever on. You invited me on that to talk about Ello. I agree.
Yeah,
That was where I met. That was the first time I met Andy Lyon. Actually, was on your show, and she just like rocks. So,
she's
uh,
amazing.
yeah.
I
So
mean,
that
the list goes on and on. I could tell you, I can start and start spewing names from now for the next 2 hours of all the guests I've had because we're up to. I think I'm doing show 76 this week. Yeah.
Yeah. No, well, but I mean, not only do you build those networks, but you create a neat environment for cross networking for other people, the guests that you have on, because you have multiple guests, where you wind up connecting people with each other, which is kind of an exciting part of that. Uh, two other comments. Eileen came back again. She said that you helped her realize why she loves Instagram so much, is because there's no SEO over there. That it's very real. Um,
And
and Go ahead.
we need that, and that's why I like it because there's no pressure.
Hmm.
There's no. We're not doing it to drive stuff particularly. We are in a subtle way. Like I said, it's subliminal. But it's fun, and people need to just use it for fun, and they'll get some connections that maybe would have never been there before because of it.
It is one of the last remaining social networks that is still a social network.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Last comment that we have on here also, Charles Dunkley, who points out that he's been watching this show and just realized that he wasn't following the page, and he also didn't realize that you, Dennis, were on Instagram, and so he's solved both. So we're going to help some other people solve that same problem. Why don't you tell us where we can find you?
Okay. Well, you can find me just about everywhere as Ask Chef Dennis. That's my web address, askchefdennis.com, on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Pinterest, on Twitter. It's Ask Chef Dennis. I've made it real easy. On Google Plus, it's Chef Dennis Littley because they made you have a last name, and that's who I am now, so I'm not changing that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear you on that. Yeah, they just recently changed that. I think it was last year that they
Yeah,
finally changed that, and there was a big uproar when they
yeah,
said, well, not only did they not change it so you don't have to have a last name, they changed it so you don't have to have your real name.
yeah.
There, I remember the uproar over that. And now tell us also now, right here on Google Plus at your page, Chef Dennis Littley, is
Mhm.
where we can find you for your upcoming show. Can we get to that right on your page?
Yes, you can. You can find it all on my page. I have a link for my show tomorrow, Around the Kitchen Table with Susan Sarah, and I will be making stir fry, made easy. So I'll show you. I will interpret my version because I am not Asian. I was not trained Asian, but I can cook enough of it to get by, so we don't have to go get greasy takeout. So, you know, and make what we want. And then Friday, I have Good Day Google Plus, and that'll be at 1 o'clock on Friday. And it's just going to be, I have some fitness people on. I have Stephanie singing, and I have Larry Brown Jr., as he likes to call himself, LBJ, and he's one of the heads of the NAACP. So we're going to have a fun show.
That sounds like a blast. When we're done here with the show, let's go ahead and make sure we get a link to both of those, Around the Kitchen Table with Chef Dennis and Good Day Google Plus, and go ahead and put those in the comments so people have a way where they can link over and connect up with you. Because both
Absolutely.
of those sound like great things to watch.
Very good. Thank you.
And for the rest of you, I am Thomas E. Hanna. You can find me at my website at BlogPhoto.tv, or you can connect up with me right here on Google Plus or on Twitter, BlogPhoto.tv. I would love to get connected with you. If we haven't met, we haven't had a conversation, shoot me a line. I would love to get connected with you. And until next week, this is Social Theory, and I'll look forward to seeing you next Tuesday right here. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.